Level 0, outskirts of Paris. Early morning, you open your eyes. Through the dirty window strikes the cold light of an autumn Paris morning. Outside, the highway hums, and the city hurries about its business. You sit at a wooden kitchen table in an empty apartment. Your right hand lies on the grip of a heavy French revolver, Manurhin MR 73. The 6-round legendary weapon of the French Gendarmerie Special Forces, GIGN. On the revolver barrel, the engraving with the number of your unit is visible. You gave this service 20 years of your life. You were part of the elite counter-terrorism and hostage rescue group. Your work required jewelry, precision in shooting to kill. You learned to press the trigger between the beats of your own heart. But now your hand trembles slightly with every attempt to pour water into a glass. On your chest, under your clothes, a round white scar remains, a trace from a clay plate fragment during your trust shot, a ritual that bound you to your comrades with blood ties. But today, this connection remained only in your memories. Your family left long ago, tired of your icy indifference. You became invisible to society and a stranger to close people. You look at the heavy steel cylinder of the revolver on the table, and you ask yourself the same question every lonely morning. How did a man who knew how to control every moment of mortal threat end up completely helpless before the emptiness of his peaceful life? But why? I would give you a choice. But this story cannot be changed. Your path was chosen long ago. Let us see how you arrived at this point, starting with the very first level. Level 1, Candidate Satory Base, Versailles. Early morning at 5 in the morning. A cold fog tightly wraps the shooting range of Satory Base. You stand in the line of candidates for the GIGN selection. More than 80% of those who arrived weed out in the very first week. Here, candidates are subjected to extreme physical loads without sleep. But the main selection test does not check your endurance or muscles. It checks your ability to trust your life to a comrade without hesitation. The trust shot, tir de confiance. You stand at the mark of 15 meters, 50 feet in front of your selection partner. On your bulletproof vest, a small clay plate is attached. In the hands of your partner is a heavy .357 caliber revolver. He must fire a live round and break the plate on your chest. Instructors in black overalls silently stand behind and observe. They follow your every micro-movement and facial expression. If you flinch, take a step back, or show your fear, you will be immediately dismissed from the selection without the right to a second attempt. Your partner slowly raises the weapon and aims at your chest. The metal front sight of the revolver freezes opposite the clay circle. Only the quiet click of the cocked hammer of the weapon is heard in the fog. You have a second before your partner's shot. You can hold your breath and freeze, completely trusting your partner, or reflexively tense your body muscles, trying to protect yourself from the bullet. Your step in this second. Freeze without movement under the barrel of your partner's loaded weapon, or twitch your body to the side, saving your life from the shot. The story continues. A dry, sharp shot rings out, and fragments of the plate scatter in the air. The bullet passes in millimeters, fractions of an inch from your body, and slams into the earthen wall. You take a deep breath, holding back the adrenaline rushing out. The instructor silently makes an entry in the sheet and nods to you. You survived, and your trust in your comrade is confirmed in practice. In the evening in the barracks, you see the empty lockers of the weeded-out men. They failed this test and left back for their gendarmerie units. You lie on the cot and close your eyes in the damp silence of the barracks, knowing that tomorrow new trials at the limit of the mind await you. Level 2, Operator, Country House, Midnight. You passed the entire selection and became an operator of the GIGN assault group. Your unit was raised on alert and delivered to the emergency site. An armed criminal barricaded himself in a country house. He holds his wife as a hostage, threatening with a weapon. You are in the position of a sniper, 50 meters, 165 feet from the house. You wear a camouflage suit and hold a heavy rifle in your hands. You lie on the damp ground under a cold rain for 3 hours straight. Your task is to control the window of the second floor of the building. The window is lit by the dim light of a table lamp from inside the room. In the sight, the silhouette of the criminal is visible, holding the woman to himself. He constantly moves, using the hostage as a shield. Suddenly, the criminal makes a sharp movement and raises his pistol. He is ready to press the trigger and solve the problem by force before your eyes. You have a fraction of a second for a shot before the tragic outcome. The criminal's silhouette is partially blocked by the hostage's body in the sight. You can press the rifle trigger, risking hitting the woman with a bullet, or delay in anticipation of a clean angle, putting the hostage under attack. Your decision is made without hesitation under the rain. Fire to kill through a partial obstacle in the window, or keep your finger on the trigger, hoping for a peaceful resolution of the situation. The day does not end on this choice. You make the shot, and the target falls to the floor of the room. The hostage remains unharmed and is quickly evacuated by the group. You slowly rise from the dirty ground and case the rifle. The heavy body armor presses on your back, and the wet uniform clings to your body. You return to the base in the back of an army truck in silence, and you understand that this shot left a deep mark in your soul. Level 3, Sergeant Marseille Airport, before dawn. 7 years of tense service in the ranks of groups have passed. You are now a sergeant and lead a GIGN assault subgroup. A passenger plane was seized by terrorists on the runway. Inside the liner cabin are more than 200 frightened passengers. Negotiations failed. The criminals began executing the hostages. Your subgroup must carry out an assault through the front hatch of the plane. You ascend the shaky assault ladder in complete darkness. You wear black gear. The helmet visor is lowered down. The plane door is blown by a charge, and you fly inside the cabin. The cabin meets you with gunpowder smoke, screams, and automatic fire. One of the terrorists fires tightly from the pilot's cabin. Bullets pierce the cabin partitions in centimeters, inches from your head. Your combat comrade falls to the floor with a heavy shoulder wound. The aisle is blocked by gear wreckage and the bodies of the wounded. You must quickly make a decision on the rights of the group commander. Continue the movement forward to storm the cabin, leaving the wounded, or stop to assist your friend under tight fire. You give the order and break forward through the smoky cabin. Automatic bursts pierce the plastic lining of the liner. You neutralize the threat in the cockpit with precise shots. All terrorists are neutralized, and the hostages are saved from the plane. You go out to the airfield flight field and take off your helmet. Your face is covered with soot, and your hands tremble with adrenaline. Medics carry your wounded comrade to the ambulance. You look at the blue flashing lights on the concrete of the runway, and you realize that the price of this victory is too high for you. Level 4, Officer GIGN Headquarters. At dusk, 11 years of service made you an officer and a negotiator. You lead complex hostage release cases across the country. Your tool now is not a rifle, but your word and voice. Today you work at the site of a bank robbery in the center of Paris. The robbers barricaded themselves inside with 10 hostages. One of the attackers is in a state of severe psychosis. He screams into the phone receiver and threatens to blow up the whole building. You sit in the mobile headquarters in front of the communication monitors. In your headphones, his hoarse and broken voice sounds. You try to calm him, choosing the right words for hours. Your nervous system is under colossal pressure. The criminal demands to provide him a corridor for escape and a helicopter. Otherwise, he promises to begin executing the hostages. The time of the ultimatum is running out, and the situation is heating up to the limit. You must choose. Give the order for an immediate tactical assault of the building, or continue dangerous negotiations, trying to convince the criminal to surrender. You grit your teeth and continue to speak into the communication microphone in a calm tone. Your voice sounds even, hiding your wild internal fatigue. After 5 hours of exhausting dialogue, the criminal surrenders. All hostages go out to the street, alive and unharmed. In the evening, you sit in an empty office of the headquarters, in front of the window. Paris lights its evening lights, and life goes on. Your young colleague congratulates you on the successful completion of the case, but you are silent, feeling a complete spiritual emptiness inside yourself. You understand that your invisible victory took the remains of your strength. Level 5, Veteran Paris, present day. The clock on your kitchen wall shows 6 in the morning. You sit in front of a cup of cold coffee in complete silence. Your civilian life is simple, monotonous, and devoid of any meaning. You try to be an inconspicuous gray man in the crowd of passers-by. You ride the metro to your new ordinary office job. Your gaze automatically scans all the passengers of the car. You evaluate their gait, luggage, and possible intentions. You cannot just read a book or listen to music like them. Your body continues to live in constant combat alert mode. Any loud bang of the doors makes you reflexively flinch. You return to your empty, cold apartment after work. On the table lies your old Manurhin Mr. 73 revolver, and the medal for courage received after the plane assault in Marseille. You risked your life for the rescue of hundreds of people in service. But now you are left alone with your broken psyche. Your brothers in arms dispersed or died in operations, and the civilians around will never understand your internal pain, because your invisible service for the benefit of the French state is your personal life sentence in the civilian life of society. Jimmy's archive. The screen darkens. A dim lamp illuminates the gray concrete walls of the office. A revolver cylinder and casings lie on the steel desk. Nearby stands a glass of water, covered in droplets from the cold. Detective Jimmy sits opposite in his invariable beige coat. The Snail, in a small felt coat, sits on the folder with the GIGN case. Jimmy slowly takes the glass, takes a sip, and puts it back. GIGN operators pass through a heavy school of training. They learn to trust a partner more than their own instincts. But the price of this absolute trust turns out to be destructive to the GIGN mind. Let us break down the materials of this archive case in detail. The Satory situation. Depersonalization of trust. The Snail slowly crawls on the desk between .357 caliber casings. It stops right in front of a heavy bullet and freezes. Remember that trust shot on the shooting range of Satory base, when you stood motionless under the aim of your partner's weapon. This ritual trains the candidate to completely suppress the self-preservation instinct. You must turn off your eye and trust your life to another person. This process is called forced depersonalization of the personality. The sapper or shirtmovik's brain learns to ignore mortal danger. But in peaceful conditions, this broken barrier causes problems. The veteran loses the ability to trust people in ordinary matters. If a person did not stand before you with a weapon, you do not believe him. Psychological first aid. If you experience difficulties in trusting colleagues or loved ones, when it seems to you that everyone around wants to deceive you, learn to build trust on small, everyday promises of people. Do not demand heroics from them. Value simple, honest actions. Google depersonalization, trust, military, ritual psychology. This will help understand the roots of your distrust toward normal society. The house situation. The sniper hyper-control syndrome. The snail slowly climbs onto the heavy body of the revolver on the desk. It freezes on the metal barrel of the weapon, hiding its horns. Remember that shot under the rain at the silhouette of the criminal in the window, when you decided the fate of the hostage in a fraction of a second on the trigger. Sniper work requires prolonged hypercontrol from the mind. You must watch the target for hours without distracting for a second. The brain is in a state of maximum scanning of space. In civilian life, this learned mechanism does not turn off by itself. The veteran continues to scan passers-by in search of hidden threats. This exhausts the nervous system and leads to chronic anxiety. Psychological first aid. If you constantly control the entry and exit points in rooms and feel strong anxiety in a crowd of people on the street, consciously switch attention to the physical sensations of the body. Feel the support under your feet and take a deep breath. Google hypervigilance, sniper psychology, PTSD, recovery. This will help return peace to your overloaded nervous system. The Marseille situation. Moral disengagement of the leader. The snail slides off the weapon and stops at the gray case folder. It freezes on the cardboard cover with the inscription, "Strictly Secret." Remember that plane assault in Marseille and the choice in the smoky cabin, when you decided whether to pass by your wounded friend for the sake of the cabin assault. A commander in combat is obliged to make decisions based on cold logic. Empathy and pity for the wounded can destroy the whole group during an assault. This phenomenon is called moral disengagement or desensitization. The mind blocks compassion for the sake of executing a combat order. But frequent suppression of empathy leads to emotional numbing. A person transfers this coldness to his family and children at home. Psychological first aid. If close people complain about your coldness and indifference, and you feel an internal emptiness when communicating with your family, start practicing active listening without evaluating the situation. Devote time to simple conversations about the feelings of your close people. Google moral disengagement, emotional numbing combat. This will help restore your ability to normal empathy. The Paris situation. Negotiators' exhaustion. The snail crawls onto the image of the communication scheme on the open page. It freezes at the drawing of the telephone set on the desk. Remember those heavy phone negotiations with the bank robber, when you chose every word for hours under the threat of explosion. Negotiator work requires a colossal emotional resource. You must pass all the fear and anger of the criminal through yourself, and at the same time maintain absolute calmness in your voice. This process leads to a severe secondary burnout of the mind. The negotiator's mind is exhausted from constantly carrying another's pain. As a result, a person loses the ability to feel any emotions in life. Psychological first aid. If your work is connected with constant communication and solving conflicts, and by the end of the day you feel empty and irritated, arrange hours of complete information silence after your work. Turn off the phone and be alone for 30 minutes. Google emotional exhaustion negotiator burnout. This will help protect your mind from professional burnout. The veteran situation. Accumulated moral residue. Detective Jimmy slowly closes the gray case folder before him. He places his palms on the cover and thoughtfully looks at the table. The snail freezes on the very corner of the closed folder, pulling in its horns. Moral residue accumulates in the soul from every heavy choice. This is not one big psychological trauma from a wound in combat. It is the silt from hundreds of small compromises with conscience over years of service. Every lie to loved ones for their safety settles at the bottom of the soul. Over time, this load becomes unbearably heavy for the veteran. The person in the kitchen suffers not from fear of criminals. He suffers from the weight of his own unspoken memories of life. Psychological first aid. Moral residue accumulates in all who are forced to make decisions. Do not carry this heavy load alone at the bottom of your soul. Find a close person to whom you can trust your thoughts. Speaking the pain aloud helps reduce its destructive weight. Google moral residue, LIT's moral injury accumulation. This will help clean the mind of the unbearable load of the past in time. Jimmy takes a last sip of water from his glass. He carefully puts the empty glass on the closed documents of the case. I'm just a detective, not a doctor and not a therapist. If anything from this archive hit close to home, talk to a professional. They know more than I do in these matters. Jimmy stands up from the table and adjusts his beige coat. Like this video if you understand the depth of this problem. We will continue to open archive cases for you on the channel. The light in the room goes out, and the detective goes into the dark.
Author's note: Hello. French GIGN is one of the most effective units in the world. Their trust shot shows the level of their mutual training. But for this precision and trust, they pay with their mind. Their service pays off at the cost of destroying their own identity. Today we broke down 5 complex phenomena of the mind in detail. And all of them work in our ordinary everyday lives. Trust depersonalization prevents us from building relationships with people when we demand checks from them instead of simple trust. The hyper-control syndrome forces us to search for threats our own, turning a normal trip to work into a combat operation for survival. Moral disengagement deprives us of the opportunity to feel compassion, turning us into cold robots in relation to close people. Negotiator burnout destroys us from others' conflicts, not allowing us to restore mental strength after a hard-working day. And moral residue quietly accumulates for years from small compromises, until it crushes us with its weight at the most unexpected moment. Go to the community tab on our YouTube channel. A new poll on the topic of today's episode is already hanging there. Which of these 5 phenomena prevents you from living? All information in the video is created solely for education. If you feel that you cannot cope with stress yourself, don't be afraid to turn to a qualified psychologist for help. Take care of your mental health and value your peace. No job and no duty are worth your mind. This was Detective Jimmy and Snail. See you in the shadows.